I used to think Batman was a billionaire pedophile with screw loose. Effectively, he had mental issues. I mean, anybody who dresses up as a bat, goes outside, and started punching people in the face, problematic. But I'm beginning to think that he's not a billionaire pedophile with a screw loose. He's just a billionaire pedophile. The reason I say that, if you remember, when Batman was asked, I believe he was asked about Aquaman, what is your superpower? Now, think about why Aquaman to some degree is asking this. Gods among men. Aquaman, king of Atlantis or whatever. You have Flash, who can run faster than an alien race could teleport to Earth. Now, teleportation is pretty much instantaneous, and the Flash was able to run from one side of the galaxy to the other side of the galaxy in a split second. Wonder Woman, yeah, pretty much God among women. And of course, Superman, who, after lifting the world, the weight of 9 times the planet Earth for 7 days, he dropped one bead of sweat. And he only dropped that bead of sweat because he wasn't exposed to the sunlight. Gods among men. And then you have Batman. In that last horrible Batman Superman film, or Justice League, you had the situation where Superman effectively could beat everybody by himself. I was even unclear on why everyone else was in the movie. Superman beats this guy down. You had all these other people, doing their thing. Batman has to run to catch up with everyone else. And it takes him like 20 minutes to get to a place that everyone else took about a minute. I'm making a point that why is Batman there? Now, when Aquaman asked him, what do you do? Can you turn into a bat? He says, I'm rich. That's my superpower. I'm rich. Period. And you thought people laughed at that, but when you think about it a little bit deeper, does Batman have a point? I don't think he has a screw loose. I think this is the typical hubris of a billionaire. Think about it for the moment. Bloomberg decides to get into the race to hold back the night, having no self-awareness to realize he is the night. He is the problem in the way that we do our politics. He is paying people to say nice things about him, $150 a pop. He is buying endorsements. He's giving money to the various charities and whatnot, and those charities, lo and behold, turn around and endorse him. I strongly suspect that the reason that Tom Perez is letting him in the debates, aside from the $320,000 that he put in Tom Perez's pocket, or you said a DNC's pocket, is because Tom Perez understands that his organization is broke. That organization needs to somehow stop Sanders, and that organization also needs to somehow beat Trump. And Bloomberg, from the DNC standpoint, I strongly suspect, gets them those items. So the fact that he was a Republican matters less. He's rich. And in Bloomberg's head, having zero self-awareness, all the hubris in the world, jumping in the race. Let's have this vanity project. Again, the entire point being to stop Sanders. And don't underestimate Bloomberg on this. I've said before that I think Bloomberg is probably one of the most dangerous people in this race. Bloomberg is spending, $500 million on ads. Put that in context, $500 million. If I'm not mistaken, Steyer is the next closest with maybe $150 million. $500 million. This is on top of reports where Bloomberg is trying to get millionaires and billionaires to stop giving Democrats money so he can effectively snuff them out of the race. The money pays off. You would think people wouldn't be as gullible, but the money pays off. Look at this. Quinnipiac National Poll. Bernie Sanders, 25%, takes the lead nationally. This goes back since December. This is averages. Biden, 17%, down 9. Bloomberg, 15%. 15%, up 7. The collapse of Biden effectively opens the door for Bloomberg. Because think about it for yourself. Who takes the number 2 spot? Who is the corporate champion if it's not Joe Biden? Do you think it's going to be Buttigieg? No, Buttigieg is not going to make it beyond South Carolina, Nevada, and some of these other states. He's going to get bullied as you go through the South. So who's the number 2? Is it going to be Warren? Doubtful. Her support is being drained away by Pete. And if it's not going to be Pete, then it's certainly not going to be Warren, who is the corporate candidate. Now, it's possible that Sanders just runs away with it where there is no great opposition per se. But that's not likely. I mean, ultimately, you're going to have a situation where candidates start lumping in, especially centrist right-wing Democrats start lumping into a particular person, and I suspect Bloomberg wants to be that person. Here's another one. Quinnipiac, national poll, Bloomberg, 15%, up 7. But I want you to look down here. Look at this. Among whites, Sanders, 22, Warren, 16, Bloomberg, 15. Among blacks, Biden, 27, Bloomberg, 22. Yes, Mayor Stop and Fondle is at 22% nationally among blacks. Sanders, 19. Now, there are a few things here that should jump out at you immediately. Joe Biden was getting blacks by like 20 points. Well, he's only 5 away from Bloomberg and only 6 away from Sanders. That doesn't spell good news for Joe Biden. But Bloomberg taking number 2 is disturbing. Keep in mind, this is Mayor Stop and Frisk. This is the guy that was a Republican as mayor and putting through what effectively ended up being just an overtly racist policy where the overwhelming majority of the people stopped were either African Americans or Hispanic. Money matters. Now, you can make a case that said, well, nobody hit Bloomberg yet. Nobody has gone after Bloomberg yet. All of that's true. By the same token, just by spending $500 million in ads and blanketing the airwaves with ads, just telling people stupid shit, those people, gullible as ever, jump on board. Bloomberg is a point away from Warren among whites. And he's only 4 points away from Biden. I'm sorry, 5 points away from Biden among blacks. That's after spending $500 million. So I think up to this point, maybe $300 million. Don't count the money out. That's my only point. No, he can't beat Trump because lefties would not vote for him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he won't beat Sanders, which is the thing that's more important in this process. Sanders, when asked about Bloomberg, goes off. Now, you can understand why. For him, the guy calls himself a democratic socialist. This guy's a billionaire. Sanders rails against the billionaire class. And whether he's hitting Pete or whether he's tying Pete to Bloomberg, in this case of the billionaire and the billionaire class, this is in his wheelhouse to some degree to go after Bloomberg. And he will probably go after Bloomberg in a more, scorched earth way than he ever go after anybody else that was in the race, especially since Bloomberg effectively is just buying the race. It also needs to be understood that you can make a strong case that the argument between Sanders and Bloomberg is more of a party divide than the argument between Sanders and Biden. I mean, after all, at the end of the day, the person who's pulling the strings is Bloomberg, meaning the billionaire class or the millionaire class that is dumping money into their pockets. If Biden couldn't carry the load, Biden was just the avatar of that class's will. The billionaire himself jumps into the race when his avatar, which is an odd, interesting, you can make a case, Biden being an allegory for the Democratic Party itself and its fealty to the billionaire class, no longer can carry the burden. Sanders goes after Bloomberg. And Sanders, everything he's saying here is 1,000% correct. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This video is going to be quick. It's not a lot to the video. I just want Sanders to finally get his bones off on Michael Bloomberg. Someone asked him the question outright and directly, and Sanders gets the opportunity to go whole hog. It needs to be understood also that these type of attacks gets across why Bloomberg would lose. The people who are backing Sanders because to some degree they agree with him that part and parcel to the problem and our political stagnation has to do with a process that is ensconced in cash. 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash. Now, if you are a politician and you're a rational actor, even if you wanted to actually do good things, I mean, even if you got into politics with the thought that I'm going to do good things, what does this do to your ability to affect policy? Meaning, would you be a rational actor and say, well, I can do things around the edges, but the way to play the process is I need to get money from these billionaires. The person who gets side from the most cash wins. Millionaires, billionaires, essentially the wealthy. The side who gets the most cash wins 90% of the time. So more than anything else, I need to get the most cash. Your time is spent begging for cash. And in begging for cash, your worldview, your point of view is going to be to some degree constrained around that. Not just that, the people who are talking to you, the knowledge that you're not going to get that money if you don't necessarily do the various favors, any notion of your political life afterwards, meaning whether you're going to end up being a lobbyist, whether you're going to work for one of these companies or corporations, the money that could be used against you if you don't toe a particular line. All of these things come into play when you are in politics. And if your thought is, I'm going to get something good accomplished, whatever you're going to get accomplished to some degree is going to be constrained by the people who are giving you cash. What is the first thing that happens? I'm going to shut my purse strings if you don't do X or if you don't do Y. And that particular language has gotten more explicit since Sanders has started making this class-based argument. Ultimately, Bloomberg is in this race because he no longer believes the Democratic Party is a home, a safe space for right-wingers. You can call them oligarchs. Not believing that Biden can carry that burden, Bloomberg has jumped into the race. And like I said, you can make a case that Biden is almost an allegory for the Democratic Party and the fact that he is falling down on the job in regards to ensuring the billionaire class gets attended to. So the billionaire class just jumps in the race. Bernie Sanders is asked about Bloomberg. Listen to what he says. Because now that Tom Perez has allowed Bloomberg to be on the debate stage, and Bloomberg may have wanted this, but be careful what you ask for. His entire bread and butter is this notion of the billionaire class. And you are going to see almost a sociological experiment on whether or not this notion of dollars versus pitchforks. Bloomberg is going to have the dollars, Sanders is going to have the pitchforks. And the war is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the soul of the Democratic Party.
Bloomberg running, some people look at him as the solution. Is he part of the solution or is he part of the problem when you talk about big money in politics?
Well, I think you're exactly right. He's part of the problem. Look, Bloomberg, anybody else in America has the right to run for president. But I think in a democracy, you do not have the right to buy the presidency. And it really is absurd that we have a guy who's prepared to spend already many hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads. Meanwhile, he did not do what all of the other Democratic candidates do. He wasn't holding town meetings in Iowa or New Hampshire, Nevada, or South Carolina. Those were not important enough for him. He could simply buy the election with hundreds of millions of dollars of ads. That is wrong. That is the basic fundamental problem of American society, is that billionaires have extraordinary wealth and power over the economic and political life of this country, and that's what we're fighting to end.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, Sanders' main argument is that billionaires have too much control in our process. And Bloomberg jumps into the race. A billionaire. And to some degree, a perfect foil for Sanders. Meaning, he is going to make that case that Bloomberg is part of the problem and he's trying to buy this presidency. And if they're on the debate stage and those attacks are coming like this guy's buying our election, this guy's buying our elections, that is a hard argument to make. Now, if Sanders is right, which is his argument is people matter more than cash in the context of winning an election, and that the policies that the Democratic Party has been running with for the most part has attended to the cash aspect, while for the most part ignoring this other human aspect of electoral, let's call it electoral math. Well, we're going to see if he's right. Ultimately, you have somebody with pretty much unlimited amount of cash that they can dump into the political process versus somebody with millions of people jazzed up and motivated to get him in office. Dollars versus pitchforks. Like, share, subscribe.